esteemed guests, and my dear friends, thank you for inviting me to the Republic India Economic Forum to 2023. I am honored to be speaking before such an eminent audience. I was listening with pride as one other speaker, our distinguished speakers, said about unveiling the vision of a future robust India. The dynamic drive to sustain the dream run that has planted our nation's flag firmly on the world stage. India is no longer the India of past. It is an India that millions of people are building. It is an India that relies on both the public and private sectors. It is an India that is more digital than much of the world, more connected than much of the world, more productive than much of the world, and more confident than much of the world. It is an India that has gone global, that has gone to the moon, and now is on its way to sun. Today's India is an economic powerhouse on the move. Today's India is carrying millions and millions of hopes, dreams, and aspirations. It is an India growing and accelerating like never before, that we too are, in our humble way, helping to build. And I say this with great pride in speaking for an Indian company. The past decade has been an amazing period. India is building that we need: rural housing, highways and expressways, high-speed rail networks, high-speed digital networks, smart grids, smart classrooms, smart cities. India has pulled millions out of poverty, trained millions of our young people, created millions of jobs, extended healthcare to millions. Our nation's amazing achievements are as massive. They are innumerable. With India climbing every peak it wants to, and with the world increasingly looking at India, we must ask ourselves what more we need. The answer to this question is infrastructure. To be precise, India needs more sustainable infrastructure. To illustrate this need, let us consider Europe's largest seaport, the port of Rotterdam in Netherlands. For over 400 years, from the 15th century to 19th century, it was largely a fishing port. Then it turned into a commercial port to serve the trade needs of the Dutch colonial empire. In the early 20th century, it again adapted to the changing needs of the world by adding bulk transshipment and petrochemical facilities. The big change in approach came after the Second World War, when the ports planner began building new infrastructure with an eye on distant future. They did not build it to serve just the needs of their time. Instead, they chose to build sustainable infrastructure with a shelf life of several generations. Someone over 60 years ago certainly made the right decision, as this example of sustainable infrastructure from the 1960s continues to be one of the busiest ports in the world. Over the past 76 years, our nation has been building our post-independence infrastructure, the fundamental social, economic, and technological structures and facilities that our people need. While our early infrastructure served our early generation well, they soon proved to be inadequate for our growing nation. With few exceptions, they were not built to meet our rising needs. By the time we came to terms with what the world was doing, it was already being replaced by something better. And then we found ourselves stuck with sunset industries and technologies. Or in other words, we always found ourselves a generation behind the developed world. Over the past decades, some bypasses did fortunately come our way. For example, we leapfrogged over several generations of large and expensive computers when we went from physical notebooks to notebook computers. And similarly, we scaled up from landlines to 4G and 5G, and from simple weather balloons to extremely complex lunar landers in a very, very short span of time. Fortunately, things have changed in the past decade. Our planners have embraced the idea that when we build infrastructure today, we must think of tomorrow. Yes, we must ask ourselves, are we building for now, or are we building for 50 or 100 years from now? What is the time horizon we are aiming for? Or as Professor Ramcharan puts it, what is the shelf life of our infrastructure? For instance, if we see electric mobility and electric vehicles as a standard part of life in the future, we should prepare for that eventuality. The sustainable infrastructure for such a future is not merely about setting up plenty of EV charging stations. It is about embedding all its current and potential requirement into our power and transport network right now, so that the infrastructure we are building now will have the capacity to shoulder the demand 2 or 3 generations from now. Similarly, we are already seeing the potential of artificial intelligence to drastically alter every aspect of our life.